This is First Up with Kane Cornes. Thanks to Sportsbet, I'm Sarah, Olle and Kane. It's taken 10 rounds, but finally West Coast is on the board in 2025. A 28-point victory over the Saints. Andrew McQualter's first in charge as senior coach.
Yeah, great reward. They were so close last week but weren't able to get it done. So to go back home against the St Kilda side and put 16 goals on them, there's Harley Reid. He kicked a couple. Once again, it was the full Harley Reid experience, but he's taking hangers, he's kicking goals, he's giving free kicks away. But this was a strong performance and a very even performance. You're trying to work out, well, how'd they do it? Like, they had less disposals. They were more efficient, definitely going inside forward 50. Here's the hanger from Harley Reid. He then tried to take another one moments later and gave a free kick against. But they had 11 individual goal scorers. They had 5 goal scorers that kicked multiple goals. Higgins there kicked 3 in the last quarter and had once again, he's their most dangerous forward. But the game opened up in the last quarter, Sarah. 12 goals were kicked. But for the Eagles to put 16 on Ross Lyon and the Saints for their first win of the year, that's a huge performance.
It absolutely is. An emotional victory on the back of an emotional weekend, Kane. Let's hear from West Coast co-captain Oscar Allen.
I know it's great to win a game of footy, but we've lost the legend of our club, and just want to send all love and support to the Selwood family. Mental health is such a massive thing in society at the moment. I've struggled with my own mental battles this year, and I've been so fortunate to have such a great support crew around me to have my back throughout everything we've gone through. I just urge anyone out there who's struggling with anything, please reach out. Helplines, friends, reach out to each other, because we're heartbroken, and we just want to offer all the love and support we can to the Selwood family in this time.
And we absolutely echo those sentiments from Oscar Allen and send our love out to the Selwood family after the unspeakable tragedy when it comes to the death of Adam Selwood. Kane, we will continue to speak about footy though, and when it comes to St Kilda, are you worried with their ability to impact the scoreboard? I mean, Jack Higgins tried his heart out again with 5 majors, but it was a pretty miserly total against a team that hadn't won up until today.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs at the footy club, unfortunately, just because there's a lack of quality in the lineup, and that's always been the case. Albeit they started the season strongly and everyone's going, gee whiz, the Saints could play finals. They were never playing finals. They never, ever had the quality in their lineup to really hurt you. So other than Wanganeen-Miller and other than Higgins, who's an elite small forward, no one else really hurts you. Like Sinclair gets a lot of the footy, but not hurting you. Jack McRae's the same, gets a stack of it. Rarely, if ever, hurt you. Wilkie's a good player down back, but Mitch Owens has his opportunities, but he's unable to kick straight. So there's just a lack of quality on this list, and their inability to score 100 points only once this year, and that was the case against the worst side in the competition today. So it's just going to be a long, slow burn until they can go to the draft, bank multiple top 5 picks, and do it for 3, 4, 5 years consistently before there's going to be any hope for this footy club, regardless of how good a coach Ross Lyon is. There's only so much he can work with.
Let's go from one upset to another, and let's head to the Gabba, because I've got to put my hand up and say I didn't see this one coming. Melbourne getting over the top of last year's premiers in Brisbane, and it all came down to this barnstorming final term, didn't it, Kane? It was all one-way traffic, and Simon Goodwin's side, they should be congratulated.
Some of the numbers in the last quarter, like off the charts, plus 13 for inside 50s. They had 9 more contested possessions. They had 9 more marks, and they kicked 4-8 to 1-1. Imagine if they kicked accurately in the last quarter, but there was some critical errors from Brisbane, which you just wouldn't expect. So letting the ball over the back and walking goals, so that can't go over the back, that ball there, that's got to come to the front, and then that goes through. We see a terrible turnover from Payne. So it just opened right up. Fritsch, look at the effort here. He's a sub, he's got fresh legs, marks the footy, and then goes. You can see him run past one Brisbane player, runs past another one, and then marks the ball inside forward 50. So they just outworked them. And I just thought they grinded them down. There's that turnover I was referencing from Payne, which leads to a Langdon goal, I think it was, in the end after a messy attempt at a shot there. But just critical errors from Brisbane. I think there's a few alarm bells starting to ring just in terms of Joe Danaher's replacement. So Gardner goes forward, did a good job. 9 career goals, he kicked 4 today. Harris Andrews went forward late, but they're definitely missing the presence of Joe, and maybe we understated how much, because they had the game in their control for the majority of it, got out to a 24-point lead, but Melbourne stormed home and kept their season alive with an epic win.
One of the protagonists was one of the ins for Simon Goodwin's side, Jake Melksham, who's 34 a little later this year. And this is one of the battles within the Vol-Kane because he was agitating Harris Andrews all day. He finished with the 4 goals and I thought played a big role in the D's getting over the line.
He's a gun. So you saw the hanger in the goal square 30 seconds into the game. But I just think he's so important emotionally. And we don't probably give him enough credit for the career that he's had and the career that he's been able to have through some adversity, a couple of clubs, injury. But today, we're seeing that there, he gives that 50 away, but then he was involved in everything. There was some byplay off the ball. At one point, he was going to squirt Harris Andrews with his water bottle, and Andrew was incredibly frustrated. But Gawn's their best player. Petrarca's probably their second best player. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that he's their third best player.
Wow.
And that's the way that he's playing right now. If he doesn't play today, they don't win. And a couple of occasions this year, he's just been so important for them.
Someone who used to be in the conversation as the best player is Clayton Oliver. For the second week in a row, we saw him with a tagging role. This time he went to dual Brownlow medalist in Lachie Neale. What did you make of it? Because I thought second up, a much better performance. He had 23 disposals, 7 clearances and a goal, and I thought was pretty influential, Kane.
Just don't be fooled. This wasn't a run with roll. This was, you go your way, I'll go my way. So I will start on you, at stoppage. But then they just drifted apart. It was the most unaccountable tagging performance I've ever seen. That goes both ways, by the way. I didn't think Lachie Neale showed him any respect whatsoever. So Neale ended up with 30 and 6 clearances. Oliver, I think, 23 and 7 clearances and the goal. I think they probably split the points, but Oliver's on the winning side of it and had some really important touches, including those 7 clearances and the goal. So he'd be feeling much better about himself, but it wasn't a tagging role. And don't be fooled if Simon Goodwin says he's going to tag someone. He will not. He's just there as a reference point, and then he'll try and win his own ball like he did today. But Lachie Neale showed him no respect.
Well, the D's have now won 4 of their past 5 matches and they've got the Swans next week at the MCG. And we're going to the MCG now because North Melbourne somehow recorded their second victory of the year, this one against Richmond. A little earlier today, in the end, it was just the 4 points that separated the two sides came. But I feel like the Tigers and Adam Yze, they'll really be ruining some missed opportunities because this was a very winnable game.
So let's take a look at a couple of these. So McAuliffe there, not easy shot, but that's probably a 7 out of 10 you'd hope to kick as an AFL footballer. And then Taranto finds himself in all sorts of space inside forward 50. He's usually a pretty reliable set shot, Tim Taranto, but wasn't able to cope with this moment. So either of these two goes through and they win. Just the 3 effective kicks on the day for Tim Taranto. Unfortunately, they had moments going inside forward 50. The big intercept mark from Toby Pink, who did a pretty good job on Tom Lynch and took a couple of intercept marks in the last quarter, was able to hold up and their defence was able to hold up. But look, for Richmond to get this close and nearly win it when they are 5 years behind in a rebuild and when they've completely got rid of their best and most senior players and have rebuilt, I think it's a real credit to Adam Yze for the season that he's having. There's now a identifiable game plan that we weren't able to see last year. They're really competitive. They'll only win 5 or 6 games for the year, but I think Richmond fans will be really happy with the level of effort and improvement of some of their young players coming through.
Where do you think Tom Lynch is at? We just saw in that last contest there, he was outworked by Toby Pink. He was kind of throwing around his body a bit theatrically as well. Do you think he still is holding up his end of the bargain in this developing side?
It's going to be a big call for them at the end of the year, I reckon. I think it's the end of his 7-year contract that he first signed and has hardly played in the previous 2 seasons. So the positive is that he's out there. He looks sore to me and he doesn't look like he can cover the ground. He still kicked 2 and I think took 7 marks or 6 marks and had 7 score involvements. But it was up against Toby Pink and an inexperienced North Melbourne defence that a lot of teams have had their way with. So I think if he gets through this year, you just don't like players going on for one season too long, as we've seen with Nat Fyfe and Travis Boak and for champions of the game. It's always good to bow out with a little bit of petrol in the tank, and that's what you'd probably be encouraging Tom to do at the end of this year.
I think, though, if you're Jonty Fall or indeed Thomas Sims or Harry Armstrong, who's injured, you'd like lining up alongside Tom Lynch, wouldn't you? Because he's still taking the best key defender. He's still intimidating defenders into making mistakes. And as a young forward, it's the hardest position in the game, Kane. Tom Lynch provides a bit of security, does he not, for these developing forwards?
Yeah, I think that's the case for this year, but I think the question's going to be next year. Can he go on again for another year? He looks frustrated to me, like he's getting involved in the off-the-ball stuff, not as much today, free kicks against, and I feel like his set-shot goal kicking has deserted him a little bit. So no worries this year. I think you get him through, probably rest him a couple of times towards the middle and back half of the year to help the young players through. And then at the end of the year, you either go and try and get an experienced one in, try and pinch one from another club, whether it's a Van Rooyen or whether that's a Mitch Lewis from Hawthorn, to play that role for the young players if you're worried about their development.
Hey, hands up if you're in the Sam Lalor fan club.
Well,
put your hand up, Kane.
Right
come on.
Up, like, it's up. No, it's up. I just think, and we were texting today, like he just rarely makes a mistake. I think he fumbled once today. It's the first time I've seen him fumble all
Ever.
year.
Yes.
And you got to watch him. Yeah, you got to watch him really closely. Like this is a 5-on-1 contested mark in the goal square. Which first-year player has ever done that? Name me a first-year player who's essentially a midfielder that's taking pack marks against 5 opponents in the goal square. So kick 2, like this sort of stuff, just does the right thing at the right time. So I just think how lucky are Richmond fans. You've had Dusty for 15 years, and then you've got the automatic replacement for the next 15 to 20 years. It's unbelievable, the fortune, and it's not just fortune, it's really good management for the footy club. It wasn't a consensus that he was going to be the number 1 pick, but that was the man that Richmond identified, and they've absolutely nailed it.
I love his hands. They remind me of Shane Edwards, so smooth in congestion. I've got a question for you, Kane. Who would you rather be over the next 5 years, North Melbourne or Richmond?
Now, this won't surprise you. I'll go with Richmond, thanks. I mean, they're just like they're almost even in their development now, and they should be 5 years behind. So somehow things aren't going that well at North with the state of play there and the game plan that Alistair Clarkson is trying to play and having those players really reach their full potential. Like, why is Dersma still a sub? Like, he should be an elite prospect coming through. I don't know why that is the case. So, I think for Richmond in the next 3 to 4 years, after these guys get 50, 60, and there's still some players we haven't seen. We haven't seen Smiley come through. We haven't seen Houghton yet, who's coming off an ACL in his draft year. So there's still a lot of upside for Richmond, and I think they'll be pretty aggressive, like for Harley Reid as well, which I think Kautumi reported on afl.com.au this week. So if they can land one of those at a youngish age still, then I think it's going to turn around pretty quickly.
I'm going to put that one in the vault and come back to you in 5 years. But now it's time for Vol-Kane-O.
Well, finally, the Fremantle Football Club have put their hand up and admitted that Luke Jackson is their number 1 ruckman. Let's have a listen to the coach after their strong performance against the Giants yesterday.
What did you make of his game, I guess, because when he has that sort of impact, it's hard to argue that playing full-time ruck's not his best position.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is. Then it's a bit horses for courses. Briggs he's a big unit, but he's not 212 centimetres like some of them. I thought Luke used his athleticism in the ruck contest, and what he does around the ground once the ball hits the deck is, it's probably not many rucks in the comp that bring that.
So it's taken a while. It's taken 2 years for the pushback, for the Yanks, for them to have a crack at anyone who's dared suggest that Luke Jackson isn't a wingman. He's not a midfielder, and he's certainly not a forward. He's a number 1 ruckman. So thank you to Justin for finally admitting that. And there's his numbers when he is the number 1 ruckman, and you just can't argue with it. Now, surely the footy club has that information, and as stubborn as they have been and tried to force this into something that is looking like it's going to work, it just won't. So that's one good problem, that they finally realise that. But then what do you do with this guy? What do you do with my man Sean Darcy? Like, he's the highest paid backup ruckman we have ever seen in the history of the game. So now that they've admitted that, I'm not sure how Sean's feeling sitting at home with ice on that knee again, going, well, gee, I can't play forward either. I can't play as a midfielder. What am I going to do? So they're going to have to go to the trade table at the end of the year. And I know he's got a contract until 2029, but try and convince him, Brodie Grundy style, that the future isn't for you at Fremantle, and ship him off to Geelong, which they probably should have done a couple of years ago. But before I go, Sarah, this is unprecedented. We're going to have a double Vol-Kane-O on First Up tonight. So Michael Christian, I put him on notice last week. He watches the show. That's the worst dive since Josh Worrell last week a couple of times. So he got a free kick for that and went back and kicked a goal. He was actually the one that initiated the contact, and then he has flopped like he's at the Olympics, like you wouldn't believe. He even knows it. Look at him. He's even laughing at himself going, geez, I got away with one there. That's the worst dive we've seen since Josh Worrell last week. And what does Michael Christian do? He goes, tick it off. No fine. Are we serious, like I said last week about staging, or are we not? Are we just going to pay lip service because it's a blight on the game? And I hope Vandermeer has had a good look at himself, and we should just keep replaying that all week so he can look in the mirror and go, gee, that was a pretty ordinary effort.
A double Vol-Kane-O. What a treat. I just ducked out and got a coffee, Kane, because you were talking for so long. You're like a dog without a bone with some topics, as you are the next one. Let's get to yesterday's result at the MCG, because the Crows, I should say, dropped their 11th game in a row to the Pies. It was a pretty wet and windy day at the MCG, and it exposed some frailties when it comes to Adelaide's forward line. And this is something that you have been banging on, Kane, for some time.
Yeah, so it worked early and they looked really dangerous, but you just see here Jeremy Howe and how impactful he was off Taylor Walker early. So Matthew Nicks can point to the conditions after. This is Dan Houston drifting down as a dangerous halfback, but just the function of Adelaide's forward line as a whole and the way that Collingwood were able to transition the ball from the back half because of how tall and immobile Adelaide's forward line is. So Howe took 3 intercept marks in the first term. And then, so this is messy, right? So there's nothing pretty about this, but this just shows ground ball inside your forward 50, who's going to lock that ball in, and how easy it is on the flip side for Collingwood to exit, because Taylor Walker can't chase. Fogarty isn't a player who's got a big engine and can chase. Thilthorpe's the same. And then Collingwood got their game going from that. And then uncompetitive in the air, what we're seeing. So in the end, it did force Matthew Nicks to make the sub with Taylor Walker. And I just think it's a major elephant in the room when you've got a champion of the footy club, how you handle that if he's not going to be in your best side, just because the opposition can exploit that on the way out of their defensive system.
Was the biggest issue not the weather? I mean, it was tough conditions for a key forward. And if you look at who Collingwood subbed out, they subbed out the tallest player on the ground in Mason Cox. I'm not sure if it was a big day for key forwards. I guess Darcy Fogarty, the exception there.
Yeah, I think his last 3 weeks, Taylor Walker has been tracking the wrong way as well. So you factor that in. But the conditions were pretty good in the first half. And if that's the case, why did he pick him? If Matthew Nicks, surely he's got access to the weather app. If he's worried about the weather, don't pick 3 tall forwards if it's going to rain in the second half. So either way, the Crows made a significant error.
Time for the temperature test. Thanks to Sportsbet. And Kane, the Dogs are the big movers and shakers this week.
They are the most impressive performance I think I've seen from any team this year, to be fair. It looked like they were the Harlem Globetrotters. It looked like Collingwood when they won the premiership. That's how clean they were and just damaging. So they were awesome. Clearly the top 2 speak for themselves. The Suns can win the flag. There's no doubt about that. I've been saying that with you for a fair amount of time now, and now we have the evidence of the last 2 weeks to show that. So that's where it sits. There's some ordinary teams in the competition, Port Adelaide amongst those, the Saints alongside of them.
They're frozen,
so
Kane. You've got Port Adelaide frozen.
Yeah, frozen. Definitely, and they could be frozen for the next 5 years. I've got some serious concerns about the future of that footy club, but that's where it sits, and there's some things sorting themselves out after 10 rounds.
All right, there's plenty more footy to come. 10 rounds in the book. This has been another episode of First Up with Kane Cornes. Thanks to Sportsbet. We'll see you next week.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.